In this video, let's take the next step in our corner search walkthrough, and let's actually go out in the field and tie the corners. Now you can see that in the final map to the client, I included a screenshot of what I actually had in EMLID Flow 360. So this is the GNSS app that I run in a browser for my EMLID GNSS receiver. And in addition to showing them the diagram or the map of what I had, I also had this picture. And this is right out of the EMLID Flow software. Now, I'm going to see if I can bring up a picture of what that looks like on the handheld app. Okay, I'll just bring that over here and see if I can. There we go. That's about as big as I can get it, I guess. So on my phone, which is what I run out there in the field, I've got a little dot that shows up for me as I'm running around trying to find things. And I want you to notice that I went out and talked to the neighbor. So I was able to talk to the neighbor in the lot next door. Remember, there was a pin set partway up. It was a big tax lot, but part of this was for a shared or a common area for septic. So he actually has a property line right back here. I never worry about whether a background image shows a property line through his house because they're never very accurate, and I don't really care about that. But I was able then to talk with the neighbor, and I couldn't find either of these front property pins right off the bat, but his pin was real obvious, so we went and tied his first, measured over from that, and we found the northeast corner, measured over from that, found the northwest corner, and then I went out and tied two more points over here just for the calibration purposes. I wanted to have some real good ties over here to create some strength or some redundancy for the calibration. And then I was able to walk back here. Remember that this is pretty brushy back here. I want to just show you a picture of what that looked like. I was real curious, particularly with this EMLID Read RS2 Plus, what I could come up with for readings under a pretty big canopy. And you can see these are big Sitka spruce, some big Douglas fir back here. I'm facing north right here. My best satellites were to the south under a pretty good canopy. And I still got fixed locations at two of these points here on the south property line, even under that kind of a canopy. And we've kind of been pushing that a little bit, just trying to figure out what those things could really do for us, and I was pretty impressed. I will tell you, I ended up getting fixed positions in on two of these points. On two of them, I got float positions down here, and when we take a look at the calibration, we'll talk about when and how to use those. So basically, I just walked around and tied whatever I could with the GNSS receiver. I'm getting NAD 83 coordinates in addition to the geodetic positions. I'm using an N-trip network for the corrections. It's supplied by Oregon Department of Transportation. And I'm expecting centimeter accuracy with that. And for the most part, that's what I got out there. So I just went simply tied those, took a couple hours to dig through the brush, a little chainsaw work, a little machete, a good shovel, and was able to find all of the property corners. This one halfway up was bent, but I was able to dig down and find the base of it. This first one that I found west was also bent. Again, I was able to dig down and find the base of it, and that really helped. So that's our corner search, where we went out and searched for the pins and tied them with GNSS. And I'll bring that up here in just a minute and show you what that looked like as far as the ties. Okay, so here's that project in EMLID Flow 360, which is an app that'll run in any web browser. And this is that same project we were looking at a minute ago on the handheld. One of the things I really like about the EMLID receivers is that they communicate directly to the cloud. So as I'm out here gathering points or tying these pins, those positions are going to the cloud, and someone back in the office can run the EMLID Flow 360 and have all this data show up real time. Kind of a neat thing for coordinating field and office if that's part of how you do things. I didn't need it this day. I was the only person running this project. But I just want you to see that. And then I want to come over to Emlet Flow 360 because it's so much easier here for me to pick one of these points. Remember I said I found the neighbor and asked him where his pins were, and the first one I tied was his northeast property corner. And this is what I'm looking for. And this was all available to me on the handheld. I put in the code as FIR, found iron rod. There's not a found rebar code. I use the standard codes that ship with the MLID. You could certainly add your own and use those in Traverse PC. But I was primarily interested in the RMS values. So I expect this to be within 0.03 of a foot because I'm expecting centimeter accuracy from the N-trip corrections off the ODOT network. And that's what I got. I got 0.03 northing, 0.03 easting, just exactly what I want. And as I walked around to the next point, same kind of thing. I found that one. Had to do a little chainsaw work and shovel work to actually expose it. But I was able to put the GNSS receiver on the pin and look at the big trees and stuff around here. Brush, much taller than I am. And yet I got a fixed location on that. And that's to the credit of GNSS. Didn't used to be able to do that with GPS, but with GNSS now we can. Tied the other property corner. Remember I said that's what I want to do. Hope to be able to find those corners and tie them because those monuments then will establish the lines that I need to stake out for them. And then if you remember I said I went a little farther. Here is another iron rod that I found, another one that I found, and then we went and looked for this one in the middle, but look at the point description. Find rebar bent. I was able to dig down to the base of it, and that's the point I actually measured. So I felt pretty comfortable with that, but it was a disturbed monument. And then I went down to the south end down here, and that's that picture I showed you earlier, that we were back under some pretty good sized trees. Our southern view was pretty well blocked, but we still got fixed positions, which is kind of amazing. This one was afloat, so I ended up not using that. But look, my RMS values are still quite good. I'm 2 centimeter accuracy. Still really, really good. Here I was able to get a fixed position, but 2 centimeter accuracy. So I'm kind of a little more limited under that canopy. Here's one I got afloat that was way, way out, so I don't even want to consider that one. I'm within 7 feet and 2 feet. And on that same point, I came back just a minute later and was able to get 1.5 centimeter accuracy in a fixed position. So that's really as good as I would expect with GNSS under that kind of canopy where my south, east, and west exposures for satellites are all under a pretty thick canopy. So I was actually pretty fortunate to get as good results as I got here that day. But I just wanted you to see how those ties showed up. And again, this is exactly what I'm looking at on my phone while I'm out in the field running this application. So nice to be able to have it both on the phone or tablet and also available in the office.